Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. If you have not done so already, what are you waiting for? Sign up for the Locked On Cougars Insider Group. Get the inside scoop on all things BYU sports I've got for you guys. And the best part about it is it comes to your phone in the form of a text message. No having to log onto a website or get into a chat to find out the intel that you crave. And the best part is you can have one-on-one conversations with myself as well. Sign up today. Log in and on our link here, whether you're watching this on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Click the link, sign up today. The best part is you get a 14-day free trial to see if it's the right option for you guys, and just $5 a month afterwards to be a part of the Locked On Cougars Insider Group. So sign up today. All right, before we go on today's show, let's talk about Egor Demin. He has been, I think, a guy that BYU fans have been intrigued by for many, many moons. Obviously, he had a really interesting freshman lone season with the BYU Cougars, but finishing on a fairly high note. I thought he had a really strong postseason for BYU basketball. And now he has been living in LA since leaving BYU and officially announcing that he's going into the NBA draft. And he has made an impression so far. Now, the biggest thing with him is, can he shoot? Let's be honest, the NBA, it's a make or miss league. They want teams that can go out there and have guys on the court, all five guys at any given time, they can make shots. Well, No Ceilings, which does a podcast as well as a newsletter, they cover the NBA in its totality, including the NBA draft, had a very interesting take on Egor Demin earlier this week and said this, quote, "Lately, there has been some fun buzz about how Egor Demin is already starting to impress in workouts with his shooting ability." Whoa, hey, shooting ability, Egor Demin? Okay. They continue. "He started the year much closer to the top of the draft than the middle or the late first round. A slide took place throughout the season because of the questions rightly warranted about his ability to score the basketball in the half court if his outside shot wasn't falling. Still, there's far too much talent to pass on if he can connect on jumpers at a respectable clip. Physical development will have to take place over the next few years, but Demin has an innate feel that you can't teach, which is especially enticing given his positional size on the perimeter." You cannot argue with what Egor Demin brings to the table already. That is, he's 6'9". He's been said by guys like Fran Fraschilla, who know basketball inside and out, that think that he is the best passer in his age group in this NBA draft class and just quite literally in the world. They think he's absolutely an incredible talent in that respect. The other thing I heard all season long, talking with people who know a lot more basketball than I do, is that when you watch Egor Demin shoot, yeah, it did not go down at a high clip. And that obviously was a concern for NBA talent evaluators. We've been talking a lot about NFL and football, but NBA talent evaluators, they look at the shooting percentages and say, okay, is this kid's shot broken? And talking with people who watch basketball for a living and, like I said, know a lot more about it than I do, they said, in fact, it's far from it. They say that his shot actually looks really, really strong. They think it's absolutely something that he's got to obviously hone a little bit and dial in. But the other comment that was made by his father is that his development as an individual player, speaking of Egor, was stunted to a level because Kevin Young and BYU were trying to win basketball games. Yes, Kevin Young wants BYU to be that NBA factory, as he called it at his introductory press conference just over a year ago. And yes, he's already proven that, sending Egor Demin to the NBA draft. I think Richie Saunders easily could have entered this year's draft. AJ DeBonsa, he's the odds-on favorite to be the top overall pick in next year's NBA draft. So the NBA factory moniker, it fits BYU, but it's not going to be that factory at the expense of winning. Kevin Young understands the only way he's going to have a job long-term at BYU, oh yes, you got to win basketball games. And sometimes that is going to cost a player like Egor Demin, who, yeah, he probably could have done extra work in terms of in-game, shooting himself out of a slump. But if he does that, that puts BYU in a precarious position where they could lose games. And obviously, the name of basketball and sports in general is you want your team to win. And that is one thing that Egor Demin showed throughout the season, is he is more than willing to contribute to winning basketball. That's one thing that I love about the way he plays the game, is it's selfless. His passing ability, his vision, as I mentioned, at 6'9", you just can't teach that. It is a preternatural ability that NFL teams will seize upon. But if in his workouts, as has been reported here by No Ceilings, if he is starting to show that shooting prowess, and kind of the funny thing about it was, is people would say he can't hit a shot. And if you watch the shooting mechanics, yeah, they were strong. And more often than not, the shot was long. It was where he was a little too strong, especially from beyond the arc. So if you can get that dialed in, and these reports early on in these workouts are emerging saying that he has started to really hone that, if he can go to the NBA combine and he can go and show that that shot is replicable and it's going down at a more consistent clip in pre-draft workouts, whether it's individual workouts with teams, in those group settings with team workouts ahead of the NBA draft and the like, so long as he aces all that, he is going to see his stock rise right back up to where it was seemingly right when the season was kicking off. Remember, tipping off, I should say. He was a top 5 pick. There were some arguments, some saying early on that he could challenge for the number 1 spot with Cooper Flagg. I still think he's probably in that 5 to 10 range in my mind with regards to the NBA draft. But that's an incredible amount of money. It's an incredible opportunity for him to go to a franchise that, yes, they're going to need him to make shots, because the funny matter of the draft is the higher you go in the draft, typically you're playing for a worse team. And that means you have more opportunities to play early on, and you have to bring everything you've got skill-wise to the table at that point. If the shot is legitimately being corrected and he's dialing it in and it's going to go down at a more consistent clip, yeah, everything else in Egor Demin's game, the bag of tricks that he has, passing-wise, court vision, his ability to get to the rim with seeming ease, all of that is going to make him a very, very enticing NBA draft prospect for NBA teams, because his positional versatility, because he showed at times also he can play off the ball. He doesn't have to have the ball in his hands at all times. And that will make NBA teams think, okay, this is a kid who's capable of coming in and maybe being our backup point guard, but creating mismatches just simply with his size. Think about some of the backup point guards in the NBA who stand 6 foot, 6'1", and all of a sudden this 6'9" giant comes out on the court and looks like, yeah, he should be playing power forward. Oh no, by the way, that's the guy you're guarding. Well, Egor Demin, he's going to pin you down in the post. He's going to drive and kick. He's going to just get into his bag of tricks, as I already referenced, and he's going to make you look silly. That is what I love about a guy like Egor Demin when it comes to his potential at the next level. I'm not the only one who's seen it, because as I mentioned, No Ceilings is already hearing these reports. And if they're hearing that in the media, imagine what's going through and going around in NBA draft circles when these scouts are getting together saying, hey, have you been out to LA to see the Demin kid? Yeah, I saw it. Shot. What'd you think? And if his shot is legitimately where it needs, in at least some people's eyes, to be, where it's going down a more consistent clip, I think it was he was sub 30% from 3, if I recall correctly, at the end of the season. If it's somewhere in that 35 to 40% range, man, you're going to have a really long and productive career at the NBA level, because that's what the NBA looks for. They want players, especially guards. It's what a wing player like Egor Demin, they have to be able to shoot. And I think at Egor, they mentioned the physical development will come in time. Yeah, he was not the biggest guy at BYU, but he worked diligently on transforming his body. I know he gained weight while he was at BYU. And if you were to look at the pictures of him from last summer and during training camp leading up to this past season versus at the end of the season, I think you'd see a pretty noticeable difference in terms of his overall body composition, but that's only going to be enhanced with an NBA team and what they can bring to bear with regards to nutritionists, strength staff, and simply put, not having to deal with school and be able to work on your game, including your body at all times. That's going to be transformational for a kid like Egor Demin. And it's a very enticing prospect, I think, for an NBA team to look at his size, look at his versatility. And yes, if he can hit the shots, speaking of mid-range and from 3, that the NBA wants him to hit, that means you're going to see his stock soar, and he could find himself very firmly right back in the top 10 of this year's NBA draft and making really, really good money playing the game that he absolutely loves. All right, that'll do it for this edition of Locked On Cougars. As always, thank you for all y'all's support. Appreciate you guys being a part of this every single day. Once again, please continue to subscribe, rate and review the show, like the show, and once again, share with your family and friends along the way as well. But until tomorrow, have a great rest of your day, and thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. And as always, thank you for being an everydayer right here on the Locked On Cougars podcast.